The Matrix, a fictional film trilogy in which universe is only a simulated version of reality. But is it even fictional? For many years, many philosophers, spanning from Eastern philosophy to Western philosophy, from Plato to Zhang, have questioned the structure of reality and how exactly it works. Many philosophers who have tried to explain this before a technological approach was introduced to the Matrix are quite interesting. Zhang, for example, compared his life to a lucid dream, while Plato had a more descriptive analogy in his allegory of the cave. This allegory features a conversation between Socrates and Glaucon. The allegory begins like this: "And now," I said, "let me show in a figure how far our nature is enlightened or unenlightened. Behold, human beings living in an underground den, which has a mouth open towards the light and reaching all along the den. Here they have been from their childhood, and have their legs and necks chained so they cannot move, and only see before them, being prevented by the chains, by turning around their necks. Above and behind them is a fire blazing at a distance, and between the fire and the prisoners there is a raised way, and you will see, if you look, a low wall built along the way, like the screen which marionette players have in front of them, over which they show the puppet I see. And do you see," I said, "men passing along the wall carrying all sorts of vessels and statues, and figures of animals made of wood, stone, various materials, which appear all over the wall. Some of them are talking, others silent. You have shown me a strange image, and they are strange prisoners, like ourselves," I replied. "And they see only their shadows, or the shadows of one another, which the fire throws on the opposite wall of the cave." "True," he said. "How could they see anything but the shadows if they were never allowed to move their heads? And the objects which are being carried in like manner, they would only see the shadows." "Yes," he said. "And if they were able to converse with one another, would they not suppose that they were naming what was actually before them?" "Very true. And suppose further that the prison had an echo, which came from the other side. Would they not only be able to fancy when one of the passers-by spoke that the voice which they heard came from the passing shadow?" "No question," he replied. "To them," I said, "the truth would literally nothing but the shadows of the images. That is certain. And now look again, and see what will naturally follow if the prisoners are released and disabused of their error. At first, when any of them is liberated and compelled to suddenly stand up and turn his neck round and walk and look towards the light, he will suffer sharp pains. The glare will distress him. He will be unable to see the realities of which his former state he had seen these shadows. And then conceive someone saying to him that what he saw before was an illusion, but that now, when he is approaching nearer to being in his eye, is turning towards a more real existence. He has a clearer vision. What will be his reply? And you may further imagine that his instructor is pointing to the objects as they pass and requiring him to name them. Will he not be perplexed? Will he not fancy that the shadows which he formerly saw are truer than the objects which are not shown to him? Far truer." The allegory continues, but the main essence of the allegory is captured in these few lines of dialogue. Basically, Socrates describes a simulated universe in full detail that acts as a second-class universe, in that the prisoners view the universe in a second dimension, while the universe we know as reality is in the third dimension. This does not mean entirely that if we are in a simulated universe, then the host universe would be in the fourth dimension, or the dimensions of the host universe would be a geometric shape of a tesseract, or a Calabi-Yau manifold, but that a simulated universe would only be a glimpse of the host universe. Socrates also talks about a philosopher-like man who breaks the chains and ventures beyond the cave, only to get his simulated reality distorted with reality. This is very similar with the main character from The Matrix, Neo, where Neo's reality gets distorted with reality. This is known as a hyper-reality, a reality in which it is impossible to distinguish reality from a simulated reality. René Descartes was a 17th century French Enlightenment philosopher who did not only a lot of notable work on the passions, but simulation. Descartes said that to know we truly exist, all knowledge must branch off one essential truth. Descartes said this truth is, I think, therefore I am. Descartes said that by questioning your existence, you are proving that you, in fact, exist. This philosophical proverb can also fall under the philosophy of empiricism, which is the philosophy that believes all knowledge derives from physical experience. Descartes explained that for this truth to be concrete in a non-simulated universe, this truth must be physical and derive from physical experience. Solipsism is the belief that the entirety of the universe is only a figment of your mind. This philosophy is known as an unfalsifiable philosophy. What do I mean by unfalsifiable philosophy? Well, to explain that, I must first talk about the work of Charles Sanders Peirce. Peirce describes an aspect of humans known as the phaneron, the universe filtered through our five senses. The phaneron can make reality seem like a hyper-reality, where it is impossible to distinguish reality from our phaneron. Since all information and sensory details must first be filtered through our phaneron, we will never know if the universe is just figments of our mind. This is why it's considered to be an unfalsifiable philosophy, but perhaps there is a way to prove them wrong. In an attempt to solve these questions, many intellectuals and philosophers have conceived philosophical razors, which are statements that can partially disprove a philosophy that cannot be proven false. For example, in the philosophy of Solipsism, the philosophy that believes that the universe was created only a short period of time ago, along with any memories that predate the creation of the universe, anything that could be used to prove Solipsism can be counter-argued by saying it was created with the universe. One philosophical razor that can partially disprove Solipsism is Occam's razor, created by an English Franciscan monk and friar, William of Ockham, in the 14th century. Occam's razor states, entities should not be multiplied without necessity. This philosophical razor essentially states that when two hypotheses are in competition for prediction, the best answer for advocation is the one with the fewest assumptions. Another philosophical razor, claiming to be more powerful than Occam's razor, created by Mike Alder, an Australian mathematician, partially disproves so many unfalsifiable philosophies that it can entirely settle unfalsifiable philosophies. Hence the reason why it is more popularly known as Alder's razor, rather Newton's flaming laser sword, which states, if something cannot be settled by experiment, then it is not worthy of debate. The contrary belief of solipsism is realism, the philosophy that believes the universe is independent of the human mind and an individual's phenomenon does not affect the universe, basically the scientific aspects of the universe. Besides the fact that Occam's razor favors realism, American mathematician Martin Gardner explained that he is not a solipsist because realism is just way more convenient, healthy, and it works. When Gardner was asked how much it troubled him that he would never know if realism was true or not, he responded, if you asked me to tell you anything about the nature of what lies beyond the phaneron, my answer is, how should I know? I am not dismayed by ultimate mysteries. I can no more grasp what is behind such questions as my cat can understand what is behind the clatter I make while I type this paragraph. In brief, we have a lot left to discover about the universe, reality, and the human mind. But that is natural for us humans. The universe has a complexity of Google times the amount of humans, even with us being the most complex life form on Earth due to our unnatural intelligence. Civilized man has only existed for 10,000 years, while Homo sapiens have existed for almost 250,000 years. We have come a long way, and soon we will know and understand the cosmos and the universe.